The TMJ-TMD conundrum is real and has been puzzling the dental and medical professions for decades. This is the TMJ-TMD Demystified podcast with Dr. Tony Urbanek, where we'll connect the dots between TMD symptoms and the actual cause. We'll tackle common TMD misconceptions and educate you, the practitioner, about a simple, tested, and proven TMD solution that has already provided relief to thousands of patients, while helping practitioners build an additional source of income free from insurance control. Welcome to this episode of the TMJ-TMD Demystified podcast.
Hello, everyone. Good day to you all. Glad to have you back with me. My name is Tony Urbanek, and we are gathered here for the next episode of TMD Demystified. As always, I look forward to speaking with you. I hope I can keep your interest for a short period of time. And today's topic is entitled Value of Duplication in the Treatment of TMD. The value of duplication in the treatment of TMD. I hope that most of you at least have followed me along on other episodes of the podcast and seen my intentions to try to bring to your attention the technology, the best way to treat this problem, to take out the confusions about treating this problem, etc. But today I want to focus on the concept of duplication. I've given this a lot of thought on how I'm going to address this with you today. As always, I'll try to make it brief but complete. I'm going to do another one of my little personal vignettes that some of you may find humorous, maybe boring. I don't know, because I haven't had any compliments or criticisms regarding previous episodes where I used personal experience to make a point. I think there's nothing wrong with using personal experience to make a point. And I have a lot of personal experience that I've honed down in my career to be successful, I guess, in my endeavors. It's been a learning experience. So the year is 1966, and I'm 19 years old, and I'm working in the steel mills for U.S. Steel in my second year. I'll try to describe this for you briefly. It's certainly meaningful to me because it's an example that I learned early on that brought me forward tremendous benefits. I think I've learned more in my career unacademically than I have learned academically, and this was one of them. My second year is hired in to what was called the tin mill, electrolytic tin plate. Take a 20,000 pound coil, put it in a 1/4 mile long mill, uncoil it, plate the whole thing with tin, recoil it at the end. And this was a 24/7 operation in a huge steel mill. I enjoyed my experience there. I learned a lot, made a lot of friends in that arena of my life. But I was hired in as a laborer, and in 1966, I was making $5 an hour. $5 an hour. That was a lot of money back then for a kid 19 years old working at U.S. Steel in Gary, Indiana. Well, one of the things I did, because I had a lot of time, laborers had a lot of time standing around on the broom or the shovel, and I made friends with one of the 3 primary line people who ran that 1/4 mile line, and in particular the fella who entered the coils. And if you can imagine a 1/4 mile line of gears and widgets and formings and 100-foot towers, and at the end of this was where the coils were entered, and was a uh, basically a wall of buttons and levers and lights, which you had to then turn in sequence to get that coil added, and then it was automatically welded in place in a continuous form. The line never stopped, so you could not miss. It had to be continuously welded. And I won't go through the whole process, but there weren't computers. The computer was the operator, and his goal, his need was to run those buttons and levers and lights in exact sequence every time a coil was added to that continuous line. And so, in several of the midnight shifts, I would sit with this gentleman and I'd watch him do what he did. And I watched him pull the levers and push the buttons and monitor the lights. And I thought it was pretty interesting what he did. I had plenty of time to sit around and watch him. And one evening I heard him, I was in distance of him arguing with the supervisor that he was due his vacation and that he had to take his vacation, and the supervisor was just as adamant that he did not have a replacement for him and he could not let him take his vacation. And I heard them arguing for about 5 minutes, back and forth, back and forth. I finally had enough courage and I stepped up between them and I said, "Excuse me." And I looked at the supervisor and I said, "I can do this man's job." And the supervisor, who knew I was a laborer, and I knew for some weeks, he kind of looked down at me, almost spit the ground, and continued arguing with the person. Finally, the person who was on the line said, "Yeah, I can see Tony knows how to do this." And that was my chance. And the supervisor finally looked at me and he goes, "Show me." And so we waited for the next sequence, about 10 minutes. And I went through the entire sequence. I duplicated that sequence of button pushing, lever pushing, line light monitoring. The automatic weld went in, the line continued on. The bells, the whistles, the horns that go along with this are amazing. And the supervisor looked at me and he said, "Do it again." And I did it again. That summer, because of that experience, I was allowed to be the feeder, which was the name of the position, the feeder on the line. There were two separate lines. And on both lines that summer, and instead of making $5 an hour, I was making $20 to $25 an hour plus bonus as a 19-year-old, because I took the time to duplicate what a feeder on a mill on the tin line in Gary, Indiana, knew how to do. I made a lot of money that summer, and it was much easier than pushing broom and digging holes with shovels. I brought that experience with me to college, and I brought that experience with me especially in the dental school. And I always took time to learn and duplicate the sequence of the different technologies that I was exposed to learn the sequence, to duplicate. It isn't that I'm so smart. It is that I took a lot of time to duplicate what I was exposed to, whether it be in a book form or whether it be in a lecture form, whether it be on my notes. As far as academic experience and converting this into academic experience, I was able to duplicate all of the steps that are necessary to go through dental school. And in Indiana, in the early 70s, dental school was nothing more than a sequence of events that you had to produce. You had requirements, numbers of root canals, numbers of extractions, numbers of crown and bridge, numbers of perio treatments. When you were finished with all those requirements, you were basically finished with dental school. Because I was really good at duplicating, whether it be the steps to a root canal or the steps to making a crown, spruing it, burning it out, casting it, finishing it off. I found myself at the end of my third year in dental school, I had completed all the steps, and I would have probably left Indianapolis if the dean had not kept saying, Mr. Urbanik, dental school is 4 years, not 3. We won't go into that. I think may have mentioned that before in other episodes. But the issue, which I'm going to bring to your attention now as it applies to TMD, and what I've discovered, what we use, what we have found is that the duplication of the technology, the clinical technology, and the commercial marketing technology of this is extremely important. I mean, over the past 10 years, slowly but surely, been picking up steam, I figured out how to overcome all the stops and the barriers of treating a patient who has these symptoms, eclectic, wild symptoms of TMD that are absolutely poorly misunderstood, misdiagnosed, mistreated, misdirected. I just had a conversation with my associate, Dr. Urbina here, who now fortunately is helping me in seeing the majority of my own practice TMD cases. Last month we did consults for roughly 100 patients, and we took impressions for devices on 52. Unfortunately, I have the help of Dr. Urbina. We just had a brief conversation about the long line, the continuous line we see in this practice now. Once you see it, you cannot ignore it. You can't see it. You can't not see it. Of the patients who have been run in circles for years regarding the obvious now symptoms of TMD that are associated directly with inflammation within the temporomandibular joint, and is solved by solving the inflammation within the temporomandibular joint, that have been unintentionally mistreated by the system. I have spent inordinate amount of time figuring out the best way to get from A to B. Treat the patient, follow them along, get the patient to be compliant, because we know patients don't want to be compliant. They want to do what they want to do too. But the steps are well worked out. The clinical steps are well worked out and well covered under the course that we offer online, and actually for the majority of it covered on the episodes of TMD Demystified on Dental Town that you're now watching. I try to cover it all, and we have a lot more to cover, especially now that we have our independent survey and study that has been completed by Middle Tennessee State University on our 3,000 patients, which validates all of what I say and the claims and the experience that I have had with all these patients. So duplication, being able to duplicate a sequence of steps is very valuable. It's very valuable in the treatment of TMD. It's very obvious to me that even those doctors who are involved in using our device in protocol, one form or another, one time or another, have not been able to duplicate the steps, clinical steps, and commercial marketing steps. And they're both equally important because of that long line of patients that we continue to see. It doesn't seem to be getting shorter. It seems to be getting longer now that our reputation here in Middle Tennessee is taking stride. It is truly taking stride. I just got January's report, January 2022. So I can quote the numbers, how many devices were made impressions for. Again, we had 9 new doctor referral sources come into our system. That's 9 new doctor practices of one kind or another who send us TMD patients. And as I've said before, we average out 10 a month, 100 to 120 a year over the past many years, adding to the number of doctors who are enlightened and beginning to understand that these symptoms that have thrown them before, that they don't understand, that they can't make sense of, have somehow to do with TMD. And now they know where to send it. But nine new doctors in January that I have not even known before. So I'm making this point about duplicating what I and my staff have helped me to learn and apply regarding the clinical treatment of TMD and the commercial marketing development of making sure that the doctors, PCPs, ENTs, walk-in clinics, especially physician's assistants, nurse practitioners, neurologists, my dental colleagues, my oral and maxillofacial surgery colleagues are beginning to understand that these symptoms are associated and that there is a solution for the patient's good and the practice good, for sure, but for the patient's good. Somehow, we have to spread this knowledge beyond Middle Tennessee, which we are working diligently to, and I hope that at least some of you who are watching this episode understand that we're looking for your continued and faithful assistance. You have to learn the steps, you have to learn what I have learned, apply what I've learned in stepwise fashion, starting with the consultation, making it simple for you, and then the delivery and the follow-up, making sure that the patient has every benefit from using the device and protocol that's available to them, and getting what the patients tell me consistently are astounding benefits. It's a big order, sounds self-aggrandizing. I understand that. Anybody, if you want to question us, question me, come on down. Please do. I encourage you to do, and I encourage your comments and criticisms because together we need to figure out a way to bring this well beyond Middle Tennessee. The more I do, the more Dr. Urbina does, the more we see it is just a huge unserved arena of confusion, this TMD thing in our midst. All the way to one of my recent episodes had to do with the invasion of inflammatory fluids within the middle ear through the petrotympanic fissure. Pretty technical, but as an anatomist, cell biologist, I mean, this fissure has been known there from the glenoid fossa into the middle ear, and sure enough, the inflammation can travel right up the petrotympanic fissure into the middle ear and causing all the symptoms of what is commonly known and misunderstood as Meniere's disease. If you ask the ENT, what is Meniere's disease? They'll say, well, it's 3 primary symptoms: tinnitus, subjective hearing loss, like there's water in your ear and vertigo. And the ENT docs have no solution for Meniere's disease. A lot of testing for it. Oh, yeah, you must have Meniere's disease. Test this, test that. So it is important to duplicate the technology that we've come up with. You can't do it just any old way. It is not complicated. It is well spelled out, both the clinical technology. I won't go through the steps here. It's all over the place on the podcast and in the course. And as far as bringing it to the public, the people who really need to know this, who are suffering terribly, we hear it so often. I mean, you know, these symptoms have ruined my life. And then they come in and I say, what you've done for me has changed my life. This isn't in a weekly experience, it's in a daily experience around here. I've mentioned before, I'm completely flabbergasted that this is such a big problem. It's much, much bigger than anybody realizes. We continue to see it grow as a problem and trying to do our best to disseminate the solution. So I ask you who watch this, who may be already network providers using the Urbanic device and protocol, or interested in becoming a network provider and protocol user, to simply learn from what's available and duplicate the steps involved with both the clinical treatment and the commercial marketing dissemination of what we know. Duplication has served me extremely well in my career. It put me through a private university via United States Steel. It brought me to great rewards and satisfaction, finishing dental school in 3 years and then going on to get a master's in cell biology. I couldn't leave. They wouldn't let me leave Indianapolis, so spent the year doing something else and ended up with another degree. And then in my experience at Vanderbilt, you know, we can talk about duplicating surgery. It's in the surgical arena, we call it see one, do one, teach one. But it isn't how smart you are. It's how well you can duplicate the steps. And many, not just me, and not just in this example of TMD treatment, many, many smart men and women have gone out and done the due diligence to learn the best way to do a service or provide a product. It's been worked out. What we're finding is that one of the problems we have in serving the public is the duplication by the providers in just duplicating what is already available, duplicating what we teach, duplicating what is available to watch. So that is why I stressed today the title of this, which is the value of duplication in the treatment of TMD. It's valuable to the patients, it's valuable to your practice. Economically, it can be fantastically valuable economically to your practice. If you are involved, the more you're involved, the more you will have the economic benefits of this. We work that out also. All right, I said my piece for today. I look forward to comments, criticisms, no problem. I'd like you to communicate with me if you have any questions. Tony at tmjservices.net, our Director of Marketing and Education, Naomi, at tmjservices.net. Our website is www.tmjservices.net. And I hope I haven't overdone this, but I hope you'll take a moment to review my comments, my little vignette about the value of duplication in what you do, whatever it is you do in life. Because if you duplicate a correct set of steps, you will get a satisfactory and sometimes amazing result by just knowing and learning how to duplicate. I appreciate your attention. I look forward to the next time I have the opportunity to speak with you. I am Tony Urbanik, and this is TMD Demystified. Hello, TMD warriors. I am Tony Urbanik, and we are here for the next edition of TMD Demystified. Welcome to you and all those interested in solving the problem of TMD in your community and in our country and actually worldwide. Today's topic is, I'm going to confront it head on. Full Monte, migraine versus TMD headaches. I have touched on this before, I've commented on before, but today, with the completion of our independent study done based on our current and past 3,000 successfully treated patients done through Middle Tennessee State University, there is much more information to say and much more to say about the validity of what I am about to say. We know anybody who treats TMD or knows anything about TMJ, TMD, or has heard about what everybody now calls TMJ, that headaches are a major portion of the complaints that patients have about their symptom complex. Actually, not everybody who has TMD complains of headaches. That is a fact. However, the majority of patients who have TMD complain of headaches. Headaches is a well-known and well-accepted complaint of TMJ, TMD patients. That's where we're going to start. I'm going to take you through the litany on this as to what I've found out, what I've discovered, what we see from day to day, and what the study has to say about what patients have to say about their symptoms regarding headaches after treatment with your Urbanic device and protocol. For those, if this is your first episode, I'll just briefly say 10 years ago, I decided to sit down and see if I could figure out what nobody else could figure out, what was going on with TMJ, TMD, why there was no predictable solution, let alone an easy solution. 10 years ago, actually now 11 years ago, I figured it out. And it has been a set of circumstances and trials getting up to the point where we now have a network of about 30 doctors throughout the United States already, and growing soon to be rapidly now that our study is out and confirms everything I'm about to tell you regarding headaches, and there's a whole lot of other things about the rest symptoms. So let's stay on headaches. The migraine headache and TMD. It is well accepted and well known that bad headaches are almost always called migraines. That's because of television and the drug companies. The drug companies, pharmaceuticals, both pharmaceuticals that you can buy over the counter and prescription pharmaceuticals, are and have been for a long time, certainly within my memory, first line of defense for bad headaches. Now there are millions and millions and millions and millions of people, mostly women, majority are women, who have frequent or recurring headaches that carry with them the moniker or history or diagnosis of migraine headaches. In the United States of America, by my observation, day to day, everybody with a bad headache calls it a migraine. That may or may not be true, but that's what we're going to discuss today. But that is a fact. If you have a bad headache and it's a really bad headache, sooner or later you're going to be calling it a migraine, mostly because what you've been indoctrinated through pharmaceuticals and the television. The primary distinguishing factor that has pretty much been accepted between a bad headache caused by or associated with TMD and a migraine headache, and also a bad headache, is visual disturbances. In my training at Vanderbilt, and going through residency, rotations, medical school, it was accepted that the primary distinguishing factor between a migraine and any other kind of headache is the migraine causes visual disturbances of various kinds. Light disturbances, changes in visual acuity, changes in perception of various kinds, dots before the eyes, color variations, light variations, squiggles before the eyes. I've heard every kind of, well, lots and lots of different variations of visual disturbances. Okay, so that's the main distinguishing factor between the two. Now, first of all, let me just say, I just did a little investigation, just a little, very brief little thing. I pulled up a couple online, online presentations on migraine. This one was done recently in 2021, published by, not an analytical medical journal, but through Medical News Today. Online, what the public gets to see about this stuff and what's presented about migraines. That's what we're going to kind of cover first. Using this one article, it's only one article. I know it's one off, but it, in my mind, represents kind of what the general gist of what the neurologists, the primary treaters, the primary physicians, providers for treatment for migraine headache have to say about migraines. It's a representative little article to the public article. So this is done, to give her credit, by a Dr. Dana Karuvila. She is a board certified neurologist, and I'm not going to go through all this in detail, but there's some parts of it that I want to cover, and I'm going to duplicate verbally and visually. So the first thing I just want to show you is that they're, in the neurologist viewpoint, in their nomenclature, there are several kinds of headaches that they like to distinguish between. And you probably heard these words. We're not going to cover them. There's the tension headache, the migraine, the cluster headache, the post-traumatic headache, the medication overuse headache, and the sinus headache. Those are euphemisms that this doctor, in her paper and published paper, make distinctions about the names, the nomenclature, and where they're located primarily. I'll hold that up just a little bit. Maybe you can see that a little bit. Okay, I'm not going to try to contradict any of that, other than to show you that there are different, in the neurologist's point of view, there are different locations for headaches, and they have different names for them and different distinguishing factors for them. The first point I want to make is that after treating non-surgically, I don't know, well over 3,000 people successfully, I can tell you that when patients come in to see us, me and the other doctors in the network who do this, they complain of symptoms of headaches and show with their fingers or their hands, when asked, where does it hurt? We will get patients who will show their pain is, and this distribution of pain can be any and all of those locations that you're looking at right now, any and all. For headaches that subsequently diminish with the treatment of temporomandibular joint splint and unloading the joint with our device and protocol. The point being, we see all the time patients with headaches in those areas. They point directly to them, and sometimes they use those names. And the most common, well, after migraine, it's sinus headache. Sinus headache, and we have found the majority of patients who come in and tell us they have been diagnosed, they have been treated for sinus headaches, and when you diminish the inflammation in the temporomandibular joint, the pain in the anterior maxilla, which they attribute, or their doctors attribute to sinus headaches, goes away. That is a fact. We can prove it. So that's kind of the first thing I want to say about headaches in general and general in migraines. Now, I'm not going to go over each one of these in detail except migraine. The other headaches, pretty much what I have to say applies to each and every one of those other kind of headaches. But I'm going to read a portion of this doctor's paper, which is published to the public. She says, under the heading of migraine affects approximately 1 billion people worldwide. It can cause a moderate to severe primary headache that typically occurs on one side of the head. The pain and other symptoms can keep a person from doing their daily activities. Under symptoms and location, during a migraine headache, a person may have moderate to severe throbbing or pulsing pain on one side of the head. The pain may last 4 to 72 hours and worsen with physical activities. Some people experience migraine with aura. Aura is visual disturbances. And aura is a set of sensory symptoms which may include seeing bright lights or flashy lights, seeing geometric patterns, having auditory hallucinations, and having numbness and tingling sensations. Other symptoms of migraine can include neck pain and stiffness, sensitivity to light, sounds, and smells, nausea and vomiting, weakness, insomnia, and unexplained mood changes. We'll talk about causes in a minute. So let me just dissect that, unpack that a little bit, migraine versus TMD headaches. TMD headaches, inflammation within the temporomandibular joint, which I explained multiple places on the podcast and in the course we offer, is a direct result of inflammation causing the autonomic nervous system to create signals to tighten up the muscles in and around first the face, in and around the jaw first, then the face, then the neck, then the shoulders, causing the litany of TMD symptoms, which include frequent or recurring headache, earache, jaw pain, neck pain, ringing, fullness, dizziness, shoulder pain, arm, hand, finger tingling, and numbness, and various kinds of locking of the mandible. Now, regarding TMD headaches and migraine, TMD headaches, well, let's go through other symptoms. We already talked about the aura. We have seen patients with verified history of aura. When the temporomandibular joint inflammation goes away, they say their auras diminish. We're going to talk about that as it applies to the study that was done, the academic statistical analysis. Other symptoms of migraine, which I went through, include neck pain. Neck pain is the second most common symptom of TMD, no doubt about it, then ear pain, then jaw pain. sensitivity to light, sounds, and smells, aura, nausea and vomiting. If you have enough pain, you're going to get sick to your stomach. Weakness, insomnia, and unexplained mood changes. If you have enough pain of any kind, it's a knee pain that won't go away, and you just get frustrated and it hurts, you develop emotional issues with it, and it can include weakness, insomnia, and certainly unexplained mood changes, because pain causes mood changes. Anybody who is, anyone who is married to either a male or female knows that when the opposite is in pain, the mood can change. And I've experienced that both ways. So what we've established here is what a board-certified neurologist has to say about migraines regarding what goes along with migraines. And what I have claimed, is that migraines, including the symptom of auras, are frequently seen with TMD headaches. Now, the causes of migraine. We know the cause of TMD headaches, inflammation within the temporomandibular joint. Inflammation is the actual cause. The thing that causes the inflammation can be chronic bruxism, chronic bruxism, acute trauma, or functional malocclusion. But the common denominator is inflammation. You can't control bruxism. Trauma, once done, it's a one-off and the water under the bridge. And functional malocclusions can be addressed and can be helpful if they can be fixed. But those are the three causes of inflammation, but the common denominator is inflammation. If you make the inflammation within the temporomandibular joint complex and glenoid fossa diminish, inflammation goes away. Now, the cause of migraines, according to this public paper, it says, experts believe. Let's just stop right there. I read this whole thing very carefully a couple times, and each one of those types of headaches that I mentioned before, each one of those in this paper specifies what the neurologists think the cause are, but they specify at the beginning of each type of headache, like it does in migraine, experts believe. The first thing that I discovered when I jumped into this and began studying migraines versus TMD headaches, so I said, I need to read up on migraines. What is the current knowledge, understanding of migraine headaches? So I read the best papers from the best researchers on the issue of what is migraine headaches, what's going on, especially what causes. And each and every one of those papers, somewhere within the paper, stated, to paraphrase, we don't know what causes migraine headaches. So when this doctor says experts believe, she is correct. They just believe that it's one thing or another. They definitely don't know what causes migraine headaches. All right, so what does she say? Experts believe that migraine may have a genetic cause since the condition tends to run in families. When I read this little paper, it just cemented so many things that I know about TMD. Does TMD run in families? Yes. Is it genetic? Not that I know of, not that I expect. I would be surprised to find out that TMD is genetic, but I do know that TMD runs in families on the female side, because 95% of TMD is females, 5% males, and we see it all the time between mother and daughter. If I'm doing a consult for daughter and mom's sitting there, I know I have a better than 50-50 chance that mom also has TMD headache. So as I'm talking to daughter, out of the corner of my eye, I'm looking at mom. And as I run through these systems, I can actually, from across the room, I can tell whether or not mom has TMD, because as I run through the systems, her eyes start getting open wider. As I start going through the litany with her daughter, with the patient, as to, do you have these symptoms? And the patient will say yes or no. But as I go through the symptoms, the mom sitting in the corner, I watch her eyes, and she starts getting that surprised look on her face. And I know mom's got symptoms. Mom brings daughter in all the time. Mom who is treated brings daughter in all the time. Daughter who is treated brings mom in all the time. Is this genetic as far as TMD goes? No. Do I know why there's a relationship between mom and daughter? I don't know. I think it's familiar. You know, there's a difference between genetic and familial. Look it up. You should know this if you're a doctor. And so I don't expect that we're going to find out anytime soon that there's a genetic relationship, but there is a familial relationship between mom and daughter on the female side, for sure, for sure. So it runs in families. To carry on, other factors that could trigger this. Now get this as we go down this. Now we're talking about migraines. A neurologist opinion stated in a paper to the public about what triggers migraines. What triggers migraines? Stress, anxiety, hormonal changes in females. That's why it's a female problem. Estrogen exacerbates inflammation. That is why it's a female problem. But hormones changes in females, bright and flashing lights, tobacco use, caffeine, stressors, both of those are stressors. Sleeping too much or too little, both of those are stressors. Strong smells, that's a stressor. And she gets really specific here. She includes matured cheeses and processed meats. I don't have any comment on that. No comment. Don't know. But I made the point that her description of the causes, first of all, they don't know what really causes it, but factors that contribute it on the in acknowledged primarily female. And the first two are listed there. It's the most likely, the stress and anxiety. What causes bruxism? Stress and anxiety. In my consultations, I always tell patients that stress and anxiety are the most common causes of bruxism, and it's seen almost it's seen in 45% of females, 95% are females, 45% of females, and patients who are either highly stressed or highly motivated. And then I say, raise your hand if that's you. I say, this problem is seen primarily in females who are either highly stressed or highly motivated or both. Honestly, out of 5,000 consultations, 3,000 treated patients. Out of 5,000 consultations within the past 10 years that I have done with TMD patients, I remember one of those patients, female patients, who did not raise her hand. They know that they're stressed or the other, highly motivated. So have we distinguished significant differences now between what the neurologists call migraines and what the TMD doctors, or the doctors who treat TMD non-surgically, think as a difference between TMD and migraine headaches? So far, we haven't noted any significant difference, except for the aura. And even until very recently, I felt that if you had a migraine, a distinguishing factor for the migraine would be the aura. The rest of them are identical to what goes on in both migraine headaches and TMD headaches. And we know, as I showed you, all the other classifications of headaches can be related in all areas of the face and jaws, which are identical to the positions of these headaches with patients who have documented, treated, and successfully treated TMD headaches. All right, so let's focus on aura. If aura is the one thing that distinguishes the TMD headache from the migraine. So in our recent study, which is actually a white paper that runs 50 some pages and which was divided into two separate and distinguished papers that are now going through peer review and publication. But the papers are done. And I did not design the study. I gave the patient list, the access to 3,000 patients to the university that took on the study and gave them carte blanche ability to design the questions of the study, to design the study itself, to design how it was going to be evaluated and statistically analyzed. It was totally out of my hands. And the results are in, and it's quite amazing in many, many fronts. But one of the things that surprised me and I did get to read the questions before the survey for the study was sent out, and ask for any comments from the doctor who developed the study. And one of the questions that was asked was about aura or visual disturbances, specifically visual disturbances. And I did not comment on that because in the information, as I fed information to the people who were doing the study, I specifically said, headaches are well known and distinguished between migraine headaches and TMD headaches because of the presence of auras. And I didn't expect them to put any kind of questions regarding that in the study because I didn't think, my point on it was, don't go there. It's well accepted that the aura is the one thing that separates these two. Well, much to my surprise, I did not even pay enough attention until the study was complete and the academic papers were published that they took a question about aura and included it within the survey questions as to what percentage of your visual disturbances were changed after treatment by use of the urbanic device and protocol for temporomandibular joint inflammation and temporomandibular joint headaches. I hope I made that clear. So I'm not going to pursue this, but this is one of the pages of one of the two similarly written but totally different papers that were written off of the study. And I know you can't read that, way too complicated. This has to do with all of the symptoms. All of the symptoms are listed here. And what this gives is two types of patients. Patients who had no treatment at all for their symptoms before they came in to see us, and patients who had previous treatment of many kinds, but any kind of treatment for their symptoms before they came in to see us. So no treatment previously and previous treatment. And then each of these, the questions are asked. The question is, and what this goes over is, what percentage of your symptoms are now diminished after treatment with the urbanic device and protocol? That's what it signifies. And when I saw this, I was pleasantly surprised, in fact, amazed. I was blown away. So, it goes down, the symptoms: ear pain, subjective hearing loss, dizziness, vertigo, recurring vertigo, shoulder pain, upper arm pain, arm and finger tingling, numbness, and finally, right before other disturbances, right at the bottom, visual disturbances. So what percentage of your visual disturbances are now diminished or gone? Analytically studied, statistically analyzed questions and survey. And for those patients who had previous treatment of any kind, including drugs, including treatment for migraines, whatever, any treatment that the response was 61% decrease in visual disturbances. And for those who had no previous treatment for their symptoms, whatever their symptoms were, the number here is 82% decrease in visual disturbances. To me, obviously, you can take one study and springboard off half a dozen more studies. That's the way science works. You go to one study and it brings up lots of other questions and things that can and should be done to verify and question and additional studies that are done on studies. I did not know that my patients had such a significant decrease in visual disturbances because we treated their TMD. That's the take-home message. I didn't know that. That's these two darker marks right here. 61% for those that were previously treated by anybody with any modality, and 82% that had no previous treatment. So, what do you deduce from this? Does it prove that migraines don't exist? No. Do I claim that? No. Do I want to claim that? No, not necessarily. More studies are necessary. I can tell you the easy study that comes to me, easy to do, inexpensive, relative, they're all expensive, but relative expensive, is take 100 people with documented migraine headaches that are being treated with drugs, take 200 of them, divide them into separate groups, leave 100 of them alone, and treat 100 of them with a device which disoccludes the posterior teeth, unloads the joint, make the inflammation go away, and make their TMD headaches go away. What percentage of group 2 do their headaches go away? Their, quote, migraine headaches go away. I hope to do that study or have someone else do it. It's not a super expensive study, and as studies go, and that would have everything to say about the relationship of migraine headaches and TMD. But visual disturbances, I almost fell off my chair when I saw those two numbers, because I was aware of all of the improvement the patient gets in all of those other symptoms. I was not aware that their visual disturbances went away to that degree. I had listened to patients who said, these visual disturbances that I have, because not everybody has visual disturbances. True. Actually, it's not that common, or I didn't think it was that common. But see, I didn't ask all the right questions when I did my consultations. This study asked the questions, and the question they asked was, what percentage of your visual disturbances are diminished or gone? That'd be paraphrased for me. And one group said 61% that had previous treatment, and the other group that had no previous treatment said 82% of their visual disturbances. Well, the visual disturbances is the only primary distinguishing factor between TMD headaches and migraine headaches. Then you have to question what really is a migraine headache, and do migraine headaches, what percentage of people actually have migraine headaches, and what percentage of people are carrying with them the diagnosis of migraine headaches that are absolutely bogus, not true. That is a mouthful, and that is significant. As I developed this device and protocol over the past 10 years, I knew I was going down a line that was developing into areas that were not anti-establishment, but went against the grain of the establishment, because I'm not anti-establishment. Establishment's established. We could write a book on the establishment, but going across the grain of the establishment in medicine, in ENT, in neurology, in dentistry, in medicine in general, in pharmaceuticals. Obviously, if you have a non-surgical, non-pharmaceutical treatment for TMD and all the pains that go with it, you are going against the grain of those groups. Now, looking at this result from this study, is like we're in the face of the establishment, a large group of establishment that studies and supports and treats migraine headaches with drugs. So with that, I'm going to let the listener today, I hope you followed me along. I really tried to make it meaningful, and I hope I did it in a way that didn't confuse you, because I like to keep things simple, and I like to explain things in a simple way, especially to patients, but even to doctors. I don't like big words, and I don't like complicated concepts. I'm going to leave it at that for the listener or the watcher on this podcast to draw his own conclusions about what I said and what I showed you. But what I said and what I showed you is valid fact, statistical analysis, independent, based on 3,000 people overall. That's where we started. Not all 3,000 people got into the study. I think 800 people were invited into the study, and whatever the study numbers were that answered the survey, but they were large numbers, and analyzed statistically. And a valid study with that result. I'll let the listener, the watcher, the viewer make your own conclusions about this. But this is the message that needs to be carried forward. Obviously, there are other studies that can be done, should be done along these lines, but this is significant change to pivot on the concept of where headaches are coming from, what the nomenclature of headaches should be, what percentage of all the headaches, which are common. I think this doctor said 6 billion people throughout the world have headaches. I don't know where she got the number. That was her statement. 6 billion people throughout the world have headaches. Of course, there are multiple reasons for headaches. You can have headaches coming from brain tumors. You can have headaches coming from an incipient stroke, for sure. Don't want to miss those. But it does question, it puts front and center the question of how much of all these 6 billion people with headaches, how much of that is coming from the temporomandibular joint? Thank you very much for your attention. I really enjoyed putting today's together because it's striking. And as I've done my last 10 years on this, I have been had to confront thousands of people who headaches were just part of the things around these symptoms that were ruining their life. It's very common. And when you have a patient, actually the symptoms diminish and go away, not only are they very happy, but it's very satisfying as a doctor to be able to do this. I can tell you personally, it's really satisfying. And that's why I enjoyed putting this particular podcast and episode presentation together for you. As always, I am open for communication. I look forward to communication. I can be reached at Tony at tmjservices.net. You can contact our Director of Marketing in and education at Naomi at tmjservices.net. Our website is www.tmjservices.net. And if you'd like to join our network of expanding network of doctors throughout the United States and Canada at this time that have access to our course and would like to be licensed to use the Urbanic device and protocol in your practice for your patient's benefit and for your practice benefit, please contact us. I am Tony Urbanic, and this is TMD Demystified.